There is something extraordinary about the first hour of an ordinary American morning. Before the world fully awakens, millions of people quietly begin the same familiar rituals they have practiced for decades. The alarm clock faithfully announces another day. Water patiently fills the bathroom sink. A favorite mug waits beside the coffee maker. Somewhere nearby rests a toothbrush, a bottle, a package, or a familiar container that has occupied precisely the same place for years. We reach for these ordinary things without hesitation because we always have. They are among life's simplest comforts, the familiar companions faithfully accompanying us through countless ordinary mornings. And perhaps that is precisely why we almost never question them. Human beings have always reserved their greatest curiosity for extraordinary things. We investigate distant places, remarkable discoveries, and fascinating mysteries, patiently waiting beyond tomorrow's horizon. Yet history quietly reminds us that some of life's most remarkable hidden truths have never hidden themselves in extraordinary places at all. They have patiently remained beside us all along, concealed not by secrecy, but by familiarity itself. For generations, Americans have faithfully welcomed thousands of products into their homes, believing they understand them completely. We recognize their names. We trust their traditions. Some accompanied our childhoods before patiently finding their place within our own homes decades later. Others arrived quietly promising convenience, comfort, and modern living. Together, they became so beautifully ordinary that millions of people stopped noticing them altogether. Curiously enough, familiarity has always possessed extraordinary persuasive power. The products patiently waiting beside our bathroom mirrors and kitchen counters each morning rarely ask us meaningful questions. They quietly become part of life's remarkable routines until eventually they feel less like products and more like trusted companions, faithfully accompanying another ordinary day. Yet history repeatedly reveals that ordinary things frequently conceal extraordinary stories of their own. Throughout this documentary, we will not merely explore what Americans use every morning. We will uncover the fascinating journeys these products quietly traveled across generations. Some revelations will challenge assumptions patiently preserved for decades. Others may invite you to look differently at familiar routines you have faithfully practiced your entire life. And a few hidden truths may fundamentally change how you understand the remarkable relationship between modern convenience and everyday living itself. Some of these products have accompanied American families for generations. Others quietly emerged from humanity's endless pursuit of simpler, faster, and more comfortable lives. None of these stories are invitations to fear the ordinary things surrounding us. Rather, they are invitations to rediscover curiosity itself, to remember that asking thoughtful questions has always been among humanity's greatest lifelong traditions. Because hidden truths rarely announce themselves dramatically, sometimes they quietly wait inside familiar packaging, patiently resting upon a bathroom shelf. Sometimes they accompany us through ordinary mornings so faithfully that we forget they were ever strangers at all. And occasionally, they reveal that the greatest mysteries were never hidden from us altogether. We simply stopped noticing them long ago. By the time we reach number 1, you may discover that the greatest hidden truth waiting throughout this remarkable journey was never about any single product patiently occupying a place within our homes. It is something infinitely more fascinating than that. Because number 42 is not our greatest revelation, neither is number 20, nor even number 5. The hidden truth, patiently waiting at number 1, challenges one of modern life's oldest assumptions, that familiarity itself is always deserving of unquestioning trust. Tomorrow morning, millions of Americans will faithfully begin their day precisely as they did yesterday. They will welcome familiar routines into their homes once again, without ever realizing how many extraordinary stories quietly accompany those ordinary moments. A familiar label, a trusted ritual, a beautifully ordinary habit patiently preserved across decades. And perhaps that is what makes hidden truths so endlessly fascinating. They do not always wait for us in distant places or remarkable discoveries. More often, they patiently reveal themselves through the things we stopped wondering about long ago. Because somewhere between yesterday's traditions and tomorrow's discoveries, 42 extraordinary stories have been quietly waiting within America's ordinary mornings. And our remarkable journey has only just begun. There is something remarkable about humanity's relationship with ordinary things. The products we trust most completely are rarely the ones we question most carefully. More often, they quietly earn our confidence through familiarity itself. They faithfully accompany us through thousands of ordinary mornings until eventually we stop seeing them as products altogether. They simply become part of life. And perhaps that is why some of their hidden stories remain so endlessly fascinating. At number 42 lies one of modern life's greatest assumptions: the belief that morning fresh always means morning better. For generations, Americans have welcomed products promising freshness, energy, and cleanliness into their homes without ever asking what those remarkably persuasive words actually mean. Freshness has always been among humanity's most cherished ideas, yet throughout history, it has frequently described a feeling just as much as a measurable quality. Sometimes, the most fascinating ingredient, quietly waiting inside familiar packaging, is not what the product contains, but the story it patiently invites us to believe. And speaking of stories, number 41 reveals the extraordinary influence of scent itself. Few people realize how profoundly fragrances accompany our everyday rituals. The smell of peppermint quietly announces the beginning of another morning. Citrus promises cleanliness. Lavender whispers comfort and calm. Long before modern science began exploring humanity's remarkable relationship with scent and memory, previous generations instinctively understood that familiar aromas possess extraordinary power. Occasionally, we remain loyal to products not because of what they do, but because of how faithfully they remind us of home itself. At number 40 waits the hidden truth behind convenience packaging. Human history has always been a remarkable journey toward making ordinary life just a little simpler than before. Single-use products, carefully designed dispensers, and beautifully convenient solutions quietly transformed America's morning routines throughout the decades. Convenience remains among modern life's greatest achievements. Yet perhaps one of history's most fascinating questions quietly remains unchanged. What treasures do we occasionally surrender in exchange for simplicity itself? At number 39 lies the belief that if something has occupied our bathroom shelves for decades, we naturally understand it completely. Curiously enough, familiarity has always possessed extraordinary persuasive power. Entire generations faithfully inherit ordinary habits without ever remembering precisely where they began. The products accompanying our parents frequently become the products accompanying us in return. Sometimes, traditions quietly become assumptions simply because they have traveled faithfully beside us for so long. At number 38 waits one of modern life's most remarkable illusions, that more foam naturally means more cleanliness. Human beings have always admired visible evidence that something extraordinary is happening before their eyes. Bubbles suggest transformation. Rich lather patiently promises effectiveness. Throughout history, appearances have frequently influenced our expectations more profoundly than we consciously realize. Perhaps that is why ordinary experiences occasionally become extraordinary lessons in curiosity itself. At number 37 lies the fascinating history of America's relationship with antibacterial products. Previous generations lived remarkably different morning routines altogether. Over time, modern conveniences quietly introduced countless innovations promising cleanliness, protection, and comfort. Human beings naturally admire thoughtful progress, and history repeatedly reminds us that innovation has transformed everyday life in extraordinary ways. Yet innovation itself has always invited thoughtful questions, alongside thoughtful appreciation. And if innovation faithfully accompanies our everyday routines, number 36 reveals something equally remarkable: the hidden power of labels promising simplicity. Pure, gentle, natural. Few words quietly inspire greater confidence throughout modern life. Human beings instinctively trust simplicity because history has so frequently rewarded that trust. Yet perhaps one of life's greatest hidden truths is discovering that extraordinary things occasionally require us to look beyond their simplest descriptions altogether. At number 35 waits the remarkable story behind disposable morning products. Humanity has spent generations pursuing greater comfort and convenience than ever before. Products once requiring thoughtful preparation now patiently wait beside us, ready within moments. There is undeniable beauty hidden within that extraordinary achievement. Yet history quietly reminds us that convenience itself has always been among humanity's most persuasive companions. We seldom question the things making our ordinary days feel just a little easier than yesterday. At number 34 lies one of humanity's oldest habits, the extraordinary tendency to trust beautiful packaging. Grocery stores are not alone in understanding this hidden truth. Elegant bottles patiently suggest premium quality. Familiar colors quietly inspire confidence. Minimal designs whisper simplicity and sophistication. Human beings have always admired craftsmanship and thoughtful presentation. Sometimes, however, the stories patiently waiting upon the outside quietly become more memorable than the truths patiently waiting within. At number 33 waits the hidden relationship between routine and trust. Consider how extraordinary it truly is that millions of Americans begin their mornings in remarkably similar ways every single day. The same familiar products faithfully occupy precisely the same places upon bathroom shelves and kitchen counters year after year. Routine quietly transforms ordinary decisions into unconscious ones. And perhaps that is why curiosity remains among humanity's greatest lifelong companions. It gently reminds us that even familiar things remain worthy of thoughtful questions. At number 32 lies one of modern life's most fascinating contradictions. Human beings have never possessed greater access to information than they do today, and yet we occasionally spend remarkably little time considering the products accompanying us most faithfully. We carefully investigate distant mysteries while quietly overlooking the extraordinary things patiently waiting beside our bathroom mirrors each morning. History repeatedly reminds us that life's greatest hidden truths frequently conceal themselves not through secrecy, but through ordinary familiarity altogether. At number 31 waits the remarkable power of nostalgia itself. The familiar toothpaste accompanying childhood memories, the trusted soap patiently welcoming another ordinary morning. The products faithfully preserved across generations quietly become symbols of something infinitely more valuable than convenience alone. They become symbols of continuity itself. There is profound beauty hidden within that truth, yet nostalgia has always invited us to appreciate life's treasures while remaining curious enough to understand them more completely than before. At number 30 reveals one of humanity's greatest misconceptions, the belief that hidden truths must always reveal something frightening altogether. Throughout this remarkable journey, we will repeatedly discover something infinitely more fascinating than fear itself. The most extraordinary discoveries seldom ask us to fear the ordinary things surrounding us. More often, they quietly invite us to become more thoughtful, more curious, and more appreciative of the remarkable stories patiently accompanying everyday life. And finally, we arrive at number 29, the greatest revelation of this chapter. The hidden truth patiently waiting here is not that America's morning products are secretly strangers altogether. Quite the opposite. It is discovering how profoundly they have become trusted companions throughout our remarkable lives. Human beings have always formed meaningful relationships with ordinary things. The cup faithfully waiting beside the coffee maker, the familiar bottle patiently occupying its place upon the bathroom shelf. The trusted routines quietly announcing the beginning of another extraordinary day. There is something beautifully human about that truth. Yet perhaps wisdom has never required us to abandon familiarity altogether. More often, it quietly invites us to appreciate it more thoughtfully than before. Because the greatest hidden truths are rarely hidden within extraordinary mysteries alone. Sometimes they patiently wait within the ordinary moments, faithfully accompanying us through thousands of remarkable mornings. And if America's most familiar morning rituals quietly conceal so many fascinating stories already, then the extraordinary revelations still waiting ahead promise discoveries even more remarkable than those we have uncovered thus far. For our journey has only just begun. The deeper we venture into life's ordinary morning rituals, the more fascinating their hidden stories become. Perhaps that is because familiarity has always been humanity's greatest comfort, and its greatest disguise at the same time. The things we trust most completely are frequently the things we understand least thoughtfully, not because they are mysterious, but because they have faithfully accompanied us for so long that we stopped asking meaningful questions altogether. And the revelations waiting ahead quietly remind us that hidden truths have always preferred ordinary places. At number 28 lies the remarkable belief that if a product disappears quickly from store shelves, it must naturally deserve our trust. America's favorite, bestseller, millions sold. Human beings have always found comfort in collective experience. Throughout history, we have faithfully admired the extraordinary things embraced by generations before us. Yet, popularity has never quietly transformed curiosity into an unnecessary companion. Sometimes, history's most fascinating lessons patiently remind us that asking thoughtful questions remains valuable precisely because millions of people occasionally believe the same beautiful stories together. At number 27 waits the hidden truth behind extra strength morning products. Modern life has gradually become a remarkable celebration of efficiency itself. Stronger flavors, longer-lasting freshness, greater convenience patiently waiting inside familiar packaging. Humanity has always admired extraordinary solutions to ordinary challenges. Yet history repeatedly teaches us that more and better have never faithfully traveled life's remarkable journey as inseparable companions altogether. Occasionally, simplicity quietly remains among life's most extraordinary treasures. At number 26 lies one of humanity's oldest assumptions, that products promising immediate results must naturally represent remarkable progress. Previous generations faithfully spent considerably more time performing the rituals that quietly begin another extraordinary day. Modern mornings frequently ask considerably less of us in return. There is undeniable beauty hidden within that remarkable transformation. Yet perhaps modern convenience occasionally invites us to ask one thoughtful question of our own. When ordinary habits quietly change across generations, how often do we remember to rediscover the fascinating stories accompanying them? At number 25 waits one of modern life's greatest hidden truths, the extraordinary influence of advertising patiently preserved across decades. Few Americans consciously remember where many of their everyday assumptions first began. Somewhere throughout childhood memories and familiar television commercials, ordinary products quietly became symbols of comfort, freshness, and thoughtful living itself. Remarkably persuasive stories seldom announce themselves dramatically. More often, they patiently accompany us through thousands of ordinary moments until eventually they begin feeling like our own conclusions altogether. At number 24 lies the fascinating history of America's morning routines themselves. Human beings have not always begun their days precisely as we do today. Entire industries quietly transformed what ordinary mornings look and feel like across generations. Products patiently arrived, promising greater comfort, remarkable convenience, and beautifully simplified rituals. The hidden truth waiting here is perhaps among history's most fascinating discoveries, that many of life's most ordinary routines were once extraordinary innovations, patiently waiting to earn humanity's trust. And speaking of trust, number 23 reveals something remarkable about human nature itself. We instinctively believe that if something causes immediate discomfort, we will naturally recognize it altogether. Yet history quietly reminds us that hidden truths have always been considerably more patient than that. The extraordinary stories waiting throughout this documentary are not stories of dramatic discoveries appearing overnight. More often, they are remarkable reminders that curiosity itself remains among humanity's greatest lifelong companions, precisely because ordinary things occasionally deserve extraordinary attention. At number 22 waits the hidden relationship between scent and familiarity. Have you ever wondered why certain aromas instantly remind us that another remarkable morning has begun? The refreshing scent accompanying a familiar bathroom ritual, or the comforting fragrance patiently waiting beside the kitchen counter, frequently become inseparable from our memories themselves. Human beings have always attached extraordinary meaning to life's simplest sensory experiences. Curiously enough, we occasionally remain loyal not merely to products themselves, but to the beautiful moments faithfully accompanying them throughout our lives. At number 21 lies one of the documentary's most fascinating revelations thus far: the extraordinary power of ordinary assumptions. Human beings seldom question the things occupying precisely the same places throughout every remarkable morning. The bottle patiently waiting upon yesterday's shelf faithfully welcomes us again tomorrow. Routine quietly transforms thoughtful choices into familiar companions. And perhaps wisdom itself quietly begins the moment we rediscover that familiarity has never diminished curiosity's extraordinary value altogether. At number 20 waits one of history's oldest hidden truths: that convenience has always quietly asked thoughtful questions of humanity in return. Every generation faithfully inherits remarkable innovations unimaginable to the one before it. What once required extraordinary effort patiently becomes life's beautifully ordinary routine. Convenience remains among humanity's greatest achievements precisely because it graciously offers us something infinitely valuable: time itself. Yet perhaps extraordinary gifts occasionally deserve extraordinary curiosity in return. At number 19 lies our remarkable trust in scientific language appearing throughout modern marketing. Words suggesting innovation, precision, and thoughtful advancement quietly inspire tremendous confidence. Human beings have always admired meaningful discoveries, faithfully improving ordinary life. History celebrates countless extraordinary innovations worthy of that admiration. Yet history also patiently reminds us that curiosity has always remained science's most faithful companion. Asking thoughtful questions has never been an expression of fear. More often, it quietly becomes an extraordinary expression of wisdom itself. At number 18 waits the hidden truth behind America's relationship with modern comfort. Consider how extraordinary our ordinary mornings have become. Products patiently anticipate our needs before we consciously recognize them ourselves. Familiar routines graciously simplify countless decisions, accompanying another remarkable day. Previous generations would undoubtedly marvel at many of life's ordinary conveniences, faithfully accompanying us each morning. And perhaps that extraordinary truth quietly invites us to appreciate them more thoughtfully than ever before. At number 17 lies one of humanity's most fascinating characteristics: the beautiful tendency to inherit habits without inheriting their stories altogether. Millions of Americans faithfully practice morning rituals first learned decades earlier without ever remembering precisely where those traditions began. The products accompanying childhood patiently accompany adulthood in return. There is profound beauty hidden within that continuity itself. Yet perhaps every remarkable tradition occasionally deserves another thoughtful conversation across generations. At number 16 waits a revelation worthy of our remarkable journey together: that hidden truths have never truly been hiding from us altogether. They patiently waited within ordinary moments, because ordinary moments are where humanity faithfully spends the extraordinary majority of its remarkable lives. We frequently imagine life's greatest discoveries patiently waiting beyond distant horizons, when history repeatedly reveals they were quietly resting beside our bathroom mirrors and kitchen counters all along. And finally, we arrive at number 15, the greatest hidden truth of this chapter. The remarkable revelation waiting patiently here is discovering that toxic products were never intended to become villains, quietly hiding throughout America's homes altogether. The extraordinary stories accompanying them are infinitely more fascinating than that. They are stories about humanity's remarkable relationship with trust itself. For generations, we have faithfully welcomed extraordinary innovations into our homes because they promised something beautifully human: greater comfort, thoughtful convenience, and better tomorrows patiently waiting beyond today's horizon. There is something profoundly hopeful hidden within that truth. Perhaps wisdom has never required us to fear familiarity or abandon life's cherished routines altogether. More often, it quietly invites us to remain wonderfully curious throughout every remarkable season of life. The ordinary things patiently accompanying us each morning deserve neither unquestioning trust nor unnecessary fear. They simply deserve the extraordinary gift of our thoughtful attention. And if something as familiar as our ordinary morning rituals can quietly conceal so many remarkable hidden truths, then the greatest revelations of all are still patiently waiting ahead. Because we are now approaching the discoveries that millions of Americans continue welcoming into their homes every single morning without ever realizing how extraordinary their stories truly are. There is an extraordinary moment in every great discovery when we realize we were never searching in the wrong places at all. We were simply overlooking the right ones. The hidden truths waiting throughout America's ordinary mornings have never belonged exclusively to the products patiently resting upon our shelves. They have always belonged to the remarkable relationship we quietly share with them. At number 14 lies one of modern life's greatest misconceptions: that toxic always means immediately dangerous. History tells a remarkably different story. Human beings naturally imagine hidden dangers announcing themselves dramatically and without warning. Yet life's most fascinating discoveries are rarely so theatrical. More often, they quietly invite us to understand that extraordinary things frequently exist along thoughtful spectrums rather than simple definitions. Curiosity has always asked better questions than fear ever could. At number 13 waits the hidden story behind accumulated routines. One ordinary morning rarely feels extraordinary at all. Yet human lives are never measured by single mornings. They are patiently composed of thousands upon thousands of beautifully ordinary moments, faithfully preserved across decades. The products accompanying us most consistently occasionally become the ones least deserving of our indifference, not because they inspire fear, but because consistency itself has always quietly amplified life's smallest choices into life's greatest stories. At number 12 lies humanity's remarkable faith in familiar rituals. There is profound comfort hidden within knowing precisely how tomorrow morning will begin. The trusted routine faithfully welcomes another extraordinary day before we consciously realize we have begun it at all. Throughout history, rituals have patiently connected generations together in meaningful ways. Yet perhaps one of wisdom's greatest gifts is discovering that thoughtful questions never diminish life's beautiful traditions. They simply illuminate them more completely than before. At number 11 waits a revelation that quietly changes how we understand ordinary things altogether. Products are never merely products. They are extraordinary reflections of humanity's values, patiently preserved across generations. Our endless pursuit of comfort, cleanliness, simplicity, and meaningful progress. To understand what patiently waits beside our bathroom mirrors each morning is, in many ways, to understand something remarkable about ourselves in return. Before we continue toward the documentary's greatest revelations, allow Vintage Verdict to remain a faithful companion for those who find hidden truths endlessly fascinating. Some stories are simply too extraordinary to discover only once. And now, we arrive at number 10. If you have remained with us throughout this remarkable journey, the hidden truths waiting ahead were always intended as your reward. At number 10 lies one of modern life's most persuasive promises: the belief that if something is sold everywhere, someone else has already asked every meaningful question on our behalf. Human beings have always found comfort in collective trust. Millions of people faithfully welcome familiar products into their homes each morning believing extraordinary systems patiently guarantee their complete understanding of them altogether. Yet history repeatedly reveals that wisdom has never been humanity's delegation of curiosity. It has always been curiosity itself. Civilization's greatest discoveries faithfully began because someone quietly asked one more remarkable question when everyone else believed there were none remaining to ask. At number 9 waits the fascinating relationship between time and hidden truths. Previous generations occasionally spent decades rediscovering ordinary things they believed they understood completely. Coffee tells one remarkable story. Eggs patiently tell another. Humanity's understanding of countless ordinary things has quietly transformed throughout history without diminishing their extraordinary value altogether. Perhaps the greatest lesson patiently waiting here is discovering that knowledge itself remains beautifully unfinished. Curiosity has never been humanity's admission of ignorance. It has always been our greatest expression of wisdom. At number 8 lies something infinitely more remarkable than any individual product accompanying America's mornings: the extraordinary realization that ordinary things deserve extraordinary attention precisely because they are ordinary. We faithfully reserve our greatest caution for unfamiliar experiences while quietly surrendering our greatest confidence to familiar ones. Yet familiarity has never asked curiosity to excuse itself from the conversation altogether. Perhaps life's greatest hidden truths patiently wait wherever curiosity has been absent longest. At number 7 waits one of humanity's oldest and most beautiful contradictions. Human beings simultaneously crave certainty and remain endlessly fascinated by discovery itself. We long for trusted traditions while faithfully pursuing remarkable innovations waiting beyond tomorrow's horizon. The products patiently accompanying us each morning quietly exist between those extraordinary worlds. They are simultaneously familiar and evolving, timeless and modern, beautifully ordinary and endlessly fascinating altogether. At number 6 lies the hidden truth that millions of Americans quietly overlook each morning: that convenience has always been among civilization's greatest achievements precisely because it graciously returns something infinitely valuable to humanity: time itself. The remarkable products patiently resting throughout our homes represent generations of thoughtful innovation, faithfully simplifying ordinary life. They deserve our appreciation. And perhaps appreciation itself becomes infinitely more meaningful when accompanied by thoughtful curiosity, rather than unquestioning acceptance alone. At number 5, we discover something extraordinary waiting patiently beyond every revelation thus far. The greatest hidden truths throughout this documentary were never warnings disguised as discoveries altogether. They were invitations to become wonderfully curious once again about life's beautifully ordinary moments. Somewhere along humanity's remarkable journey toward modern living, many of us quietly stopped asking meaningful questions about the things faithfully accompanying us each morning. Yet curiosity possesses an extraordinary characteristic. It patiently waits for our return, regardless of how much time has passed since our last remarkable question. At number 4 lies one of history's greatest lessons: that wisdom has never belonged exclusively to experts, laboratories, or remarkable discoveries patiently waiting beyond distant horizons. Wisdom frequently reveals itself through ordinary observations thoughtfully considered across extraordinary lengths of time. Human beings have always possessed remarkable abilities to rediscover wonder within life's simplest moments. Perhaps that extraordinary gift becomes even more valuable with each passing decade of our lives. For the longer something faithfully accompanies us, the more remarkable it becomes when we learn something entirely new about it altogether.